But when it comes to actually doing something for the American people, absolutely not. If you'd like to call in before we go off the air, 873-1400, Davie County number 336-499-0681. We'd like to get your opinions. But back to the JFK assassination, the official version, riddled with holes. They passed this off on the American people, and it's funny. We criticize the government's version of 9/11 because it's full of holes as much, if not more so. People will question JFK but believe 9/11. You have some thoughts on that one?
It seems that the older an event is in history, the more likely people are to believe that, oh yeah, Kennedy, that was a hoax. But 9/11, no, there's no way they could have done that. When they actually lived through an event, it seems to somehow psychologically make them believe that it must be legitimate.
You know, growing up, my family, my mom and dad, especially my dad, he always questioned the Kennedy assassination. We've got another phone call. We're going to go to our phones. Hey, you're on the Real News.
Good morning.
Yes, sir. How you doing today?
I'm doing pretty good. I want to make a comment on the bailout.
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Okay. The government is bailing out these companies, but we have executives that still taking the big money.
You got that
As
right.
far as United Auto Workers and GM with the big three, which probably is no longer going to be the big three, they've had opportunities along the years to increase the fuel mileage and have better vehicles.
I agree.
The technology to knock a satellite coming through the air at 24,000 miles an hour with this laser system, we have the technology to increase the gas mileage and rid ourselves of other countries' vehicles in our country. That's all I got to say.
Well, and one of the problems with General Motors and the big three is the unions forcing them to pay them more and more money. The unions forcing them to, if automation takes a job, they still have to be paid. Between that and the federal government's restrictions, and then, like you said, the auto workers' refusal to step up and make changes for the future, a lot of this is to blame on themselves. And I'm like you, I'm against bailing out anyone. We're supposed to be capitalists. When we bail out corporations and banks, we're socialists, and we went around the world preaching free markets, free markets. Now we look like big hypocrites, which we are.
It's also said that General Motors is a healthcare company that just happens to make cars on the side.
Yeah, if we're forced to bail them out, those of us that don't have health care or is having to pay an exorbitant price for it, is providing health care for those auto workers, and we're on the hook for it. It's socialism. We should be in the streets screaming bloody murder, and when we get down to the Federal Reserve today, I for one will be.
We even have Americans that are uninsured, have absolutely no health insurance whatsoever, being forced to pay other people's health insurance.
We've got our elderly having to choose between food and medicine, and they're being forced to line the pockets of these corrupt elite banksters on Wall Street.
Not only that, but we also have congressmen and senators up there that are really putting down the money.
Oh yeah, our system is corrupt. We need to make drastic changes, and I don't see it coming from the Obama administration. Our country's in peril. Our children's future's been sold out.
You know that when Clinton up there, he made they brokered a deal. That's why he went out there campaigning for Obama. They brokered a deal for his wife. Oprah Winfrey, excuse my language, but she's a puppet on it. She owes Obama. He owes favors out there right now. He's got to call them all in. People could be calling in them favors for Obama. So, you know, as the old saying goes, God bless America. You know?
And I expect to see Colin Powell jump in on this bandwagon too. He came to support Obama in the 11th hour. I mean, perhaps he's the next Secretary of Defense.
It seems that Colin Powell, he was probably one of the first generals as far as back as I can remember that endorsed a political candidate. MacArthur, probably one of the best generals that ever was. He didn't get involved in no politics. He did what during the time after World War II built up Japan and wanted to take care of some things that down the road he would see with the you know.
Well, we appreciate you calling in today. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
No, thank you.
Hey, thank you, sir. If you'd like to call in before we go off the air again, phone number is 873-1400, 336-499-0681.
One thing I wanted to also mention, we saw come out of the Obama administration yesterday as a possible pick, actually a very likely pick for the next Treasury Secretary, Timothy Geithner, who is the president of the New York branch of the Federal Reserve. And if you're not too terribly familiar with the structure of the Federal Reserve System, the New York branch is actually the most powerful branch there is.
We got another phone call. Hey, you're on the Real News.
Yeah, this is Dave. How are you today?
Hey, great, Dave. How you doing?
Good, good. I'd like to discuss an aspect of the federal government and the auto companies that a lot of people really aren't aware of. Years ago, back in the 70s, the federal government instituted the CAFE program. You've heard of CAFE. This is Corporate Average Fuel Economy, which meant they couldn't build all vehicles with poor fuel mileage. They had to balance it off. This is why they build very few V8 motors today. They can build them, but there's kind of a limited angle there. Well, in any case, the feds brought the average fuel economy for cars actually up a little higher than it should have been. And then they brought the fuel mileage requirements for trucks a little lower than they should have been. So that encouraged the companies to build a few small cars that lean toward the trucks and the SUVs. They did manage to have phenomenal success promoting these SUVs, which are, in effect, a substitute big car. It's a truck with leather seats, and they had phenomenal success selling these things, although I personally don't like them at all. I like a conventional car, but now these SUVs replace the large cars. The large cars actually would have gotten much better fuel mileage, for the simple reason they don't provide such colossal wind resistance on the road. You take a big Chevy Tahoe or Suburban, it's like driving your storage shed down the highway. There's tremendous resistance, air resistance. A Chevy Tahoe or Suburban or a Ford Explorer at the 80 miles an hour that they drive on the interstate, I think could barely get 10 or 11 miles a gallon because of this wind resistance. So you take a 60s car, before the Fed stepped in, they were getting 18 or 20 miles a gallon for the same size and weight, but much less wind resistance. So
it's just like anything that the federal government gets involved in, they wind up just completely destroying it.
We've got 60 seconds left, so I certainly do appreciate you calling in. We've got a couple things we've got to add before we go off the air, but I appreciate you calling in. Call back in again.
Okay, John, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Every week we do a poll, and this week the poll was the globalists and their agenda, Congress that refuses to end the Federal Reserve, Secretary of Treasury Paulson, Wall Street elitists, all the media that refuses to tell the truth. The Hypocrite of the Week is the name of our poll, and this week the winner was the globalists and their agenda. I got a question for you, and before I ask you the question, I'm going to give you the answer. Every time I ask a question, the answer is the corrupt Federal Reserve banking system. Why is it now it requires 2 incomes for a family to survive? Answer, corrupt Federal Reserve banking system. Why has our dollar lost 97% of its value since 1913? Answer, corrupt Federal Reserve banking system. Why are we $10 trillion past bankrupt? Answer, corrupt Federal Reserve banking system. Why is our currency fiat worthless paper? Answer, corrupt Federal Reserve banking system. Who has bankrupted our country? Corrupt Federal Reserve banking system. Who has mortgaged our children's future? Corrupt Federal Reserve banking system. Who has hopelessly enslaved our society with debt? Corrupt Federal Reserve banking system. And who creates money from thin air? The corrupt Federal Reserve banking system. Next week, our guest will be Charlie Giles of the Feel Good Foundation. Join us then, and until next week, this is Fair and Ty, Brian and Jim saying, God help us all.